I'm actually an artist. I make rap, and I've been doing it for a while, and I've been expanding to other things. So music kind of took a back seat for now. But I just I always remember getting this feeling of making a song and just feeling like everything is right, like like there was like this immense sense of meaning and purpose, and it was just like, and I could never explain it. It was just like, I just feel right. I feel like I'm doing what I need to do, and I just feel like this is what needs to be happening. And just kind of learning about the left and right brain, and just seeing how that's what music does. Like the right brain is able to connect to music, and it just gives us this sense of meaning, and meaning is in the right brain. I think the one thing, like, there's a big idea from McGilchrist's book, is that we only understand things through metaphor, and it's only the right brain that understands metaphor. So, like, we can't make sense of anything. We can't find any sense of meaning. It's like, if a lot of times when there's the studies with people having strokes in the right brain, it's like meaning has been drained out of their lives. So it's just like, meaning is so important to us, and it comes from the right brain, yet we overlook that.
Yeah. And you put it so perfectly. I think, when we have those experiences of meaning, and meaning is an all at once kind of thing, and you either know it or you don't, and you feel it. But the left brain comes along and says, okay, well, let's try to take this apart into its pieces and dissect it, and let's figure out the meaning of our life. And it's an impossible task. I mean, the meaning is holistic. And the left brain wants to dissect it like a science project, and that's why you find very little on the science of meaning. And if you go in, I mean, there are very few books that talk about the science of meaning, because it's a very difficult thing to analyze. And when we say analyze, we just mean, you take it apart. And so when I did this as a project with my students, I said, I did it impulsively one day. I just said, tell me what meaning is, or tell me what music means to you. And I got this wonderful, long essays about the core of the meaning of their life centered around music. They couldn't imagine life without music. And I thought that was so interesting too, because they couldn't dissect it. They didn't know why, which is to say the left brain couldn't put it into words, but it was absolutely true. It was true regardless of their inability to explain it. And I always go back to Nietzsche, because if you look at that, so Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, when he wrote about concentration camps, and he started off with a quote from Nietzsche that, if you have a why, you can deal with any how. It's super important for us, and particularly people dealing with the last couple of years with COVID, and when we've got so many things kind of up in the air, kind of shaking what we consider normal reality to be is. And so we need to deeply get into the why. And the problem with the why is that we're trying to enter it with a left brain thinking mode, but you can't find meaning by starting with the parts. You can't start off with the parts and try to build up to the whole. You have to simply get better at not understanding, it's not even the right word, at validating these right brain experiences. And again, the left brain is so good at demoralizing them and devaluing them. And that's why you see this massive movement across the West, at least, with, people cutting music classes, and they'll cut art classes first, because we say, well, art just isn't as important as something more practical. And so we want to cut these things because we don't, the truth is the left brain from its viewpoint simply doesn't value them. And that's what McGilchrist, I think, was getting at, that, we're a left brain culture because we're letting the rules of the left brain govern our life. And the problem is that the life is far more vast than the set of rules the left brain goes by. And that's when we start touching really intangible things like the meaning. And so you've got this thing that can get you through anyhow, cancer, sickness, death. It's the great liberator of suffering. But you can't get there by thinking about it. You can't get to meaning by creating a flow chart and here's the 10 steps to finding meaning in your life. I mean, so meaning is a little bit more of a mystery. For when people ask me, well, how do I find the meaning? I usually tell them, well, it's really already there, and you can't find it. And when I say you, what I mean is your ego can't find it, because the ego is limited by its own set of thinking, and it's simply it could be standing right in front of a mystery, and the mystery, the wonderful, glorious mystery, would go completely unnoticed by the ego. And I love that story. I think Eckhart Tolle tells it, but it's an old Eastern story of a beggar who sat on this box his whole life, and he was just begging for money his entire life. And someone finally came along and said, "Have you ever looked in the box?" And he's like, "No, there's nothing in there of value." And of course, it was just filled with gold. And that's sort of, we've got this right brain, and if we just looked, in an open, so we can't, left brain is just, it's always constrained. So we have to go beyond who we think we are. And that's the challenge, I think. And it's tough for people to leave the ego, because we would rather feel comfortable in our suffering. That, suffering has become such a comfortable friend. Like, we'd rather be sad and depressed because that feels normal to us. And when we start this path and we start feeling we get into some right brain, and we feel the meaning, and we feel the bliss, and we feel the joy that just comes about with letting go of the self. It's such an unusual experience that for some of us, we run right back to the suffering ego, because for some of us, and I remember that when I was first experiencing some of this, because I had tortured myself for so long, I had suffered for so long, that suffering had become such a comfortable friend that it was very ironic. It almost felt better to be neurotic and suffering, because when I started having these moments of peace and bliss, and it felt so uncomfortable. There was a sense where it felt like it was so strange. And so I had to realize what I was doing is, of course, jumping right back to the left brain, and it was the left brain that was making those judgments.